Have you ever wondered what has happened to the United States and its once vibrant culture? Have you ever wondered why a virtuous American culture has been in decay for over 60 to 70 years? The book Deus Ex Machina, God from the Machine, explains how foreign belief systems have been imported into the United States by foreign intellectual agents to be used to fundamentally transform the most prosperous and free nation in the world into a typical third world country. Learn how the progressive academics, progressive activists, large corporations, and the mainstream media have become appendages of the federal government, a Praetorian Guard, and an extension of the political vanguard class. Deus Ex Machina exposes the cogs of the machine that progresses our civil society to chaos and subjugation. Get this tool to educate others and illuminate the truth on the battlefield of ideas. Let's make a difference. Get Deus Ex Machina, the progression of secular socialism, from Amazon.com and Lulu.com today.
You are listening to the Lanterns Radio Network, where Americans come together to illuminate the truth. Turn it up loud and proud until the knob breaks off. Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
Are you getting a TV picture now, Houston? Neil, yes, we are getting a TV picture. You're in our field of view now. Okay, ready for me to come out? All set. Okay, I'm on the top step. It's a very simple matter to hop down from one step to the next. You've got 3 more steps and then a long one. Okay, I'm going to leave that 1 foot up there and both hands down to about the 4th rung up.
We say to our nation tonight, we say to our government, we even say to our FBI, we will not be harassed. We will not make a butchery of our conscience. We will not be intimidated, and we will be heard.
Welcome to the Battlefield Live radio program. Chris Pilier, Lanterns Media Network. What's going on, folks? Really, really excited. Tomorrow, I'll be traveling to Washington, D.C. That's right, we got CPAC. It's going to be really, really fun. Conservative Political Action Conference. There'll be a lot of great speakers there. Want to send a big thanks to all the folks over at CPAC for inviting us and allowing us to air on Radio Row. And we'll have some writers there as well. So we'll be covering it pretty much the entire time that CPAC is going on. So if you're wanting to know what's going on at CPAC, you can tune into Lanterns Media Network and get a lot of that information. And we'll be tweeting out comments from speeches. We'll be doing a lot of great interviews. Jonathan Dunn has done a fantastic job of setting up Lanterns Media Network for success at CPAC. And we're going to have a lot of fun. I hope you all can tune into us. We'll be airing on Spreaker Live as well as Facebook and others. And we'll be archiving as much as we can. It's going to be a very, very busy couple days. I think we totaled it like 27 hours of radio. So it's going to be jam-packed, needless to say. So really, really excited because I got some new equipment. If y'all are watching the studio, I got some equipment from PreSonus. I'll be talking about them here in the turn of the hour. I just want to give these guys a good shout-out. But we got a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about Milo Yiannopoulos, what's been going on with him. Breitbart has accepted his resignation. And we'll also talk about some, I guess we're at the crossroads of conservatism with a lot of these comments that have been taking place around the Milo Yiannopoulos discussion. So stick with me. We'll be right back after this short break on the Battlefield Live radio program. Stick with me.
We're here to fix the machine.
Battlefield Live. You're listening to the Battlefield Live with Chris Pilier from Lanterns Media Network, the Battlefield Live radio program. I want to thank you for joining us on the battlefield today, and it is going to be a great show. I'm really excited. It's going to be a short show tonight, though, folks, because I got to actually pack up. Got to get the mobile studio, the Lanterns mobile studio, on the road. I'll be flying out early in the morning in order to be able to get to CPAC sometime tomorrow around 3 o'clock. I'll be picked up by the Lanterns team, and we'll be rushed off to CPAC in Washington, D.C. in order for us to be able to cover what's going on. First, before we get in on the road here with our radio show, make sure, if you haven't yet, go to Facebook Live. You can check us out at facebook.com/LanternsBuzz. We are live right now. You can also check us out on Spreaker.com. Just do a keyword search for Lanterns Buzz. That's where we air our live shows. You can find me on Twitter, or us on Twitter, at Lanterns Buzz, as well on Facebook at Lanterns Buzz. You can find me personally on Facebook at Paul Revere Again, and on Twitter at Paul Revere Again as well. And, of course, you could subscribe to our podcast at iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, SoundCloud, YouTube, and, of course, Spreaker. And can't forget to mention lanterns.buzz, our website, lanterns.buzz. You can check out our archive there. First and foremost, folks, I want to let you know, if you notice anything different, we've been doing some things over here in the studio, the Lanterns Media Network studio. We still got a lot of work to do, but some audio quality. We're working on that, and I'm hoping to get some feedback from everybody. But I do want to send a shout-out to my friends, my new friends over at PreSonus. Yes, PreSonus is actually located right near my home, and I've been looking for some equipment for the studio and done a lot of shopping. It seems like for the last 2 years I've been looking for a specific board that was going to provide me the ability to do the radio show as well as produce other shows. And I've been looking at this beautiful Studio Live 16.4.2 AI. Okay, I know that's a lot. That's a mouthful. Just put it this way. Awesome, awesome machinery. Nerdy stuff, folks. Yes, I get a little nerdy about the equipment. But needless to say, I had ordered a board, and I had ordered it from Amazon. PreSonus is the manufacturer. They're located here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And had some issues with the board when I received it, and I was really nervous because I didn't buy it from a local retailer. I'm a Prime subscriber on Amazon, so I wanted to benefit from some of the purchases there. So anyway, to make a long story short, in the process of searching for this board, I actually went to the facility down here and met with someone there and did a tour of the facility. And let me tell you what, the guys and gals over at PreSonus were top-notch, 100% professional, entertained all of my questions immediately. In fact, I saw some of the state-of-the-art equipment. And then after purchasing the board, I had a small problem with the board that I received. I made a phone call, actually sent an email to the guy that had given me the tour, and literally within a couple of days, they had replaced my board. And I mean, I can't thank them enough for giving me the service that they did. So I wanted to give those guys and gals a shout out. They're not paying me to say this. I'm saying this because it's important to support American businesses when we can. I am for free markets and being able to buy wherever the hell I want to buy. I don't care what country it's from, but if I want to buy something locally and support our local workers, I'm going to do that, and I did, and so. But needless to say, this is an American company, and they treated me like an American should be treated. So I want to thank the guys and gals over at PreSonus. All right, so let's dig in here. A lot has happened over the last week. So I guess the latest news, you can't avoid it if you're on Facebook or on Twitter, is the recent resignation of Milo Yiannopoulos. If you're not familiar with who Milo Yiannopoulos is, he was the tech editor at Breitbart. And very controversial character, provocateur, if you will, always saying things that were very provocative. I kind of liken him to some, say, like a Howard Stern type of character. He is homosexual, proudly so. Doesn't claim to be conservative per se, but of the right. He has been somewhat of the I guess the embattled darling of the alt-right. He has had a lot of, I don't know, the alt-right is always this weird thing for me. I understand what the alt-right is. There's no real definitions of it. And, there's very, radical aspects of the alt-right that we could definitely dig into. Milo, I had him actually on the program a while back and asked him some tough questions about the alt-right and what does it stand for? And I was satisfied with his answers. And quite honestly, in talking with Milo, I was very impressed with him. Now, in many cases, I see, and I've followed Milo for quite a while because, quite honestly, I'm interested in how it is that Milo connects with so many people. You can't deny the fact that he is effective in delivering a message. He travels around in campuses. He's almost his glorious. I don't even know if I can say it on the radio. His glorious the F word for homosexuals, right? The glorious F word for homosexuals tour is what he called it, right? And he had a lot of people following him. And look, a lot of the things that Milo did and said, I agreed with. He's a very polarizing character, which in some cases I didn't like the tactics that he used, because I do liken them to a more of a progressive style tactic, a means to an end. If you ever listen to a Milo speech, Milo colors his conversation with jokes, usually a lot of sexual innuendo, homosexual innuendo at that, and that's just stick. And if you don't understand his stick, then you're probably somewhat offended. Look, I listen to Bill Maher. I don't like Bill Maher's politics, but I respect him in his opinion. I listen to it because I want to know what the other side is saying. I listen to Milo, not because I agree with 100% of what he said, but I want to understand where he's coming from. And just like I would listen to Ben Shapiro or listen to Mark Levin or Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, these are all people that I can relate to in some respect. I can relate to Milo in some respects. In fact, some of his tactics are some of the things that I would like to do in some cases. Because I'm frustrated, right? We get frustrated, and a lot of times we want to say things that are off color because we're aggravated. We want to shock people and want to wake people up, but we have responsibilities, right? I have a responsibility behind this microphone, and my responsibility reaches far beyond just the Battlefield Live radio program. I'm a key figure in Lanterns Media Network, so I know that I have to be fair to the people that look to me to be a guiding light for our network. And so there's some responsibility that I hold. And so there's certain things that I may not say because I feel like I would be doing a disservice to the people that I represent in Lanterns. Some of the controversial topics that Milo has talked about, specifically some in the news, I understand where he was coming from. But he put himself in a position to be misunderstood. He worded things poorly, and And I'm not going to dig into the specifics because I think that there's so much nuance there that we could get lost in the nuance. In all fairness to Milo, I do think that he's been mistreated for the most part by a lot of conservatives. And not because I agree with Milo's position on the age of consent and things of that nature, which we'll talk about here in just a second. I think he was treated unfairly because there's a ton of people out there that are never Trump, and there's a ton of people out there that are always Trump. And the people that are never Trump are going to hate Milo because Milo is a Trumpster. And there's people out there that are going to support Milo because Milo is a Trumpster. My question to you is conservatism at a place now where we're in a crossroads. The fear that I have of where we are as a nation is that we've shifted so far to the left and we've embraced secular humanism in such a way that we're looking to personalities over principle. I'm actually starting to see a lot of this being echoed in the conservative media, in the echo chamber, if you will. Principles over personality. And I'm liking it. I think Matt Walsh wrote an article today. I've been speaking about this for quite some time. And I'm hoping that it's starting to get a little traction. Because conservatives need to understand that what makes us conservatives is not our personalities. It's not who we are as people. It's not our humanity. It's our principles. And we cannot begin to determine whether or not Milo is a conservative or whether Donald Trump is a conservative without defining conservatism. I ask you the question, what is conservatism? What is it to be a conservative? So I think we need to set out to somewhat define that. Because if we can't define conservatism and what it truly means, we're going to get lost in a bunch of junk, right? What are we going to get lost in? We're going to get lost in the church. We're going to get lost in the Second Amendment. We're going to get lost in all these different things that are just outliers to what conservatism really is. What is the Second Amendment to conservatism? I would ask you. So I'm asking you this question. What is conservatism? We'll talk about this on the Battlefield Live radio program right after this short break. Stick with me. We'll be right back.
Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
People often ask me, they say, Chris, how is it that we can change the minds of many in this country? And I say, well, you first don't start with the mind, you have to start with the heart. You don't change minds without changing hearts. And that's what we're going to do. It wasn't that long ago that you might not have had hope for the country, and all of a sudden you had to change your heart. We expect that other people right now feel the same way that we used to. It's those people that we have to reach out to. It may be you that we have to reach out to. So it's our task to form a community, a group, unified behind principles, unified behind what has made America the country that it is now. It's about liberty. It's about freedom. And everybody wants to experience this. We just have to show them how. It's about you being a lantern shining out the light of truth. And we can bring this all together in one place. It's truly about the shining city on the hill. Hope is not in the hands of someone else. It's within ourselves. It's within our hearts. It's within our minds. And it's about utilizing those things in order to be able to make us free.
Lanterns illuminating the truth. Battlefield Live.
Thank you for joining me back on the battlefield, folks. Chris Pilier, Lanterns Media Network. Getting ready for CPAC tomorrow. It's going to be really exciting. If you all are interested in what's going to happen at the Conservative Political Action Conference, make sure you tune in to Lanterns Media Network and keep an eye on the website. There's going to be a whole bunch of people writing. We're going to be tweeting all throughout the day. You'll see a ramp up in activity if you've been paying attention to Lanterns Media Network. You're going to see a lot of contact with you. Hopefully it's an impactful contact that will give you some insight of what's taking place on the floor in CPAC. Look, we're going to CPAC because we're trying to, if you don't know the Lanterns motto, it's we're here to fix the machine, and that's what we're going to do. We're actually going to be basically challenging people. Look, this whole thing with Milo, the fact that Milo was invited to CPAC, I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I know that people get hung up on this thing with the fact that it's considered a conservative conference. So if Milo brings another group of people that are going to be exposed to conservatism, I'm willing to take that. I'm willing to take that group of people and talk to them, engage with them on the battlefield of ideas. They're a lot closer to us than would say the progressives on the left, right? You could argue that Milo is more of a right-wing, European right-wing guy, or maybe a right-wing progressive if you want to look at it in that respect. But there's a lot of things that we can actually meet on the battlefield of ideas on and agree, right? You're not going to hear me behind this microphone tonight, folks, beat up on Milo. You're not. It's not because I'm a Milo fanboy. That's not what it's about. It's because what I'm going to talk about is Milo's commentary, his principles, and some of or lack thereof. I'm going to discuss the things that he said, not who Milo is, or try to determine whether a Milo Yiannopoulos or not is a conservative. Because I don't think that trying to figure out whether Milo is a conservative or not is not really important. First and foremost, he's not running to represent me. I don't look to someone like a Milo or a Ben Shapiro or a Steven Crowder or a Mark Levin to represent me necessarily. Their views match some of my views. Not all, but some do. I agree with some and disagree with others. But I think it's important before we start getting into this discussion whether or not somebody is a conservative or not, we need to really decide what is conservative and what is not. So what I'm going to do over the course of the next 5 minutes or so, do it real briefly, I want to explain to you what my thoughts on conservatism is. And I'm not going to get into Edmund Burke and stuff like that. I'm not going to dig into the philosophical side of it. I'll talk about things in the very general. But understand that conservatism, it really is just classical liberalism. You see, liberals stole the word liberal from conservatives because liberalism is liberty. It's in relation to liberty. There's no liberty in authoritarianism like you would see under a liberal rule, right? So it's classical liberalism. And conservatism is much more than just social issues. That's kind of the Alinsky tactic that has been, I I guess, projected on conservatives is that we've been pushed in this corner to look like crazy, we're just a bunch of crazy Christians that want to push their religion on us, right? That's the stigma that conservatism have received. When in fact, conservatism is embracing time-tested results of thousands of years of humans experience. And I say thousands, I'm talking about maybe 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years. Okay? Yeah, it goes back that far. You know, if you look into what conservative principles are, they base themselves off of religion, philosophy, science, and history. I would argue that conservatism is about conserving Western culture. We could say American conservatism is about conserving our heritage or the Constitution, things like that. We can look at that American conservatism. But conservatism is much broader than just American conservatism. Conservatism is not right-wing European fascism. That's not what it's about. It's not Islamic conservatism, where we embrace something like Sharia law. That's not what we're talking about, right? But what we really have to focus on here is Western culture, because Western culture is what has brought us, has created the evolution, if you will, of human experience to the place where we are now, where you're actually watching me live from my home in a computer and listening to my voice, and you could be thousands of miles away. You could be on the other side of the globe and be listening to me live. When just over 100 years ago, the telephone was invented. Think about that. Think about, I forgot what I was watching. I was watching, I forgot what television show it was, or a movie I was watching. It was something from like 2000. Oh, I know what it was. I was watching Friends. I was watching Friends with my wife, and it was something from like the late 1990s. And they were all in some. You all might remember which show this is. I'm not a huge fan of Friends. I mean, it's funny. I get it. But they were all in this rich guy's house, and he had one of these little small screens, and they were in there, and they were like, "What is this screen?" It's like, "Well, that's a telephone screen or something like that. It's for video telephone calls." And they were like, "Wow!" And at the same time I'm doing that, I'm sitting on my phone, and I was typing a text to somebody, and then I realized, and here I am on Facebook showing my iPhone, I can talk to people face to face on my iPhone. I talk to John all the time. John's in Ireland. I'm talking to him, 7 hour. I think it's 7-hour difference in time zone. I'm talking to my phone. These are things that Western culture has provided, and the American culture is at the pinnacle of Western culture. Embracing, time-tested results from the human experience and embracing Americanism is conservatism. Americanism is an idea of putting all of this knowledge that we've learned over the course of several thousand years into an ideology, into a framework, if you will. It's called conservatism. Here's an example of some of the things that we've embraced through experience. And look, this kind of ties into this whole conversation with Milo. How many times have you heard people, specifically parents, tell their kids that you shouldn't have sex before you're married? Oh, here we go. Chris talking about the religious stuff. He's on the social right. He's a social conservative because he doesn't agree with sex before marriage. Well, folks, I can tell you that I understand the human nature. I understand little boys and little girls and big boys and big girls and what happens to our bodies when we mature and all that stuff. I get it, right? So what's the purpose of telling a child, and I say a child, that is 15 years old that they shouldn't have sex before they're married? What's the purpose of that? Is it a religious thing? Or is it something that's been time-tested and results over thousands of years? through the course of many years and of experience, even before the biological aspects of this were learned, the Bible may have alluded to things like this, not specifically, but alluded to the bonds that are built when consummating a marriage. And there's purpose to it. There's purpose to the sexual nature of a human being. At the hard core aspects, I guess that's probably a pun that I should not use in talking with this particular subject. But in looking at the idealistic aspects of sexual relations between a man and a woman, the purpose of it is to give birth to children, right? Well, there's some pitfalls to that conversation. What about, a man and a woman that get together and the woman cannot have a child for whatever reason, whether it's the man's fault or the woman's fault? Well, then should they just stop having sexual relations? Well, there's more to the sexual relation than just creation, right? It's a relationship between a man and a woman that actually builds a framework, if you will, a spiritual and biological framework for the relationship. So in doing this before you're prepared to marry, which basically means you're committing to each other, doing this builds these bonds before the relationship is mature. Look, I don't want to seem like I'm old fuddy-duddy, but we can sit here and have these discussions about the importance of marriage and the importance of respecting our sexual nature, things of that nature. But these are time-tested principles or time-tested experiences. There's no secret the fact that a young boy or young girl, 16, 17 years old, has sex for the first time, that there's a special bond that's built between those two. I mean, you've heard these stories before, right? You may have even experienced this before. And it may seem uncomfortable to talk about this stuff, but if we can't talk about it and can't point to the things that are evident in our experiences about why we don't do things or why we shouldn't do things, then we'll never understand and we'll never evolve, quote unquote, into better human beings. So is sex for pleasure? Or does pleasure make us have sex? If you believe in God, did God create pleasure to make us procreate? I mean, if it wasn't pleasurable, would we do it? I mean, it's kind of awkward. It's a lot of work, right? I mean, you have to be appealing. You have to look good. I mean, it's a lot of work going into being sexually attracted to someone or someone being sexually attracted to you, right? Is there a purpose to it? I mean, it's it sounds like a silly question, but think about it and explore that in your mind, because if you can think about like that, I mean, look, all of us liberals out there, we're all about the nature, right? Understanding nature. Well, sexuality is a part of nature, right? So sex void of purpose distorts boundaries of sexual relations. Now think about that for a minute. When you participate in sexual intercourse and it's void of purpose, it's just for pleasure, it's just to, do whatever you do, want to have a good time, you're just going to have a one-nighter, whatever you call it. What does that do to the relation? Well, it destroys the purpose of it. The purpose at that point just becomes pleasure. Getting your rocks off. Yeah. Why is it that we talk about this? Well, because if you start to look at some of the problems that we're seeing in our current society, that kids are growing up and not respecting the relationships that they need to have with their counterparts. If girls and boys, when they grow up and they're participating in this activity and they're not respecting it, it distorts their view on what their purposes are. Look, I understand that Milo, I'm talking about Milo had some experiences as a young boy. 17 years old, I think was what he said in his video. And he basically explained he had a long-term relationship with a guy that was 29 years old starting at 17 years old. And all of us right now are kind of like thinking about that, going, "That's how horrible that's just." He was molested. Well, in the current definition, of consent, he was molested, and it's important to define that because there's laws for a reason. We've come together as a society and determined that the age of consent, in the United States at least, is a certain age, right? So if you understand the age of consent is not always the same as it is in other countries, you'll understand some of the complexities of the discussion that Milo was engaging in. In fact, if you listen to what he was saying, he was basically saying the age of consent is oppressive because pedophilia, as it was being debated, and Milo actually accurately defines, is that it's sex with a child, not someone of puberty, which becomes a young adult. So in talking about the complexities here, there's a discussion to be had about this. It doesn't mean that you have to genuflect to the idea of men having sex with young boys, but it's to affirm our principles and to affirm the reasons why it's not good for children to engage in these things or young adults to engage in these things, specifically with adults. There's reasons for all of this, and we can explain them. But instead, it's just a shouting match about, well, he's a pedophilia. He's a pedophile, or he's embracing pedophilia. Oh, no, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. Yes, he is. Well, explain it. Talk about it. If the guy's wrong, he's wrong. But talk about why he's wrong. Don't just say he's wrong and just simply feel comfortable in your culture. Because guess what, folks? Your culture is changing. Your culture is changing, and there's a portion of the population, including people that subscribe to conservatism, quote unquote, that agree that the age of consent needs to change. I don't, but there's a lot of people that do. And if we don't have the discussion, we slip further and further into the darkness of cultural Marxism. I would love to have the conversation with Milo about this, or anybody for that matter, about discussing what the age of consent means. Just because a little boy has entered into puberty, does that mean he's prepared to have that relationship? These are discussions that we should have, because these discussions will make us better parents. They'll make us better stewards of our civil society. I'm hoping I'm kind of tweaking that little thing up there we call a brain, because I know when I start to think about these things, it makes me really truly question where we're headed as a society. But we got to have these discussions, folks. So stick with me on the Battlefield Live radio program. We'll be right back after this short break. Battlefield Live.
Find Lanterns Radio Network on Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, iTunes, Player FM, YouTube, and other social media by searching keyword Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Radio Network.
So first let me say that I share the concern of the left over our new President-elect Donald Trump. I never thought I would even say the words President Donald Trump. But most of our fear is the concern with the executive branch. I think that's the thing that we can relate to. We both, left and right, people that are really truly looking for a solution in the country. And this executive branch has been expanded greatly over the years and offers a huge sword that could be used to swing at the American people by the person in that position. Doesn't matter who it is, Donald Trump or Barack Obama or whoever, Bernie Sanders. I recognize the fears of the left and the new president, as he will soon wield the much expanded power that Barack Obama and his predecessors unleashed. Now, when Barack Obama was elected, okay, I was greatly concerned as the left is. So if you're listening to me and you're the left, I'm speaking to you.
You have impacted with the arm of the chair.
No, Mr. Spock. I meant, what happened to us?
That we have yet to ascertain.
Lincoln died 3 centuries ago on a planet hundreds of light years away.
More that direction, engineer.
Thank heaven.
Mr. Scott, there was no deity involved. It was my cross-circuiting to be that recovered them.
I'm just as concerned as you are. I was concerned in such a way that I wrote an entire book about how the progressive movement has pushed to replace the American culture that has embraced individual liberty, the rule of law, equal justice under that same law, property rights, and the free and open society to debate ideas.
I had a wild neighborhood, I got to tell you, because my mother's Puerto Rican and my father's Negro, and we lived in a real big Jewish tenement building in an Italian neighborhood. Every time I go outside, the kids say, "Get him! He's all of them!"
My fear was that the nation was being pushed towards a totalitarian socialist state, much like you fear. All the people that are coming out and saying they are fearing Donald Trump because he's a quote-unquote fascist or like Hitler, they're fearing socialism much like I did in 2008. It's a different type of socialism. What I learned in this exercise is that the progressive movement was not solely an extension of operations of the Democratic Party, but rather a part of a dialectical expression within a society in class conflict that offers a similar counterpart. The one that you fear, Mr. and Mrs. Liberal, the alt-right.
We walking down the street and you'll see like a group of black dudes walking. Not just any old black dudes. We talking, thugs. Talking, there'll be some thugs. And in the group, they got like one or two, sometimes as many as 3 white guys will be with them. You ever seen this? Well, let me tell you something about those white guys. Those white guys are the most dangerous motherfuckers in them groups.
You are listening to the Lanterns Radio Network, where Americans come together to illuminate the truth. Turn it up loud and proud until the knob breaks off. Lanterns, illuminating the truth.
Battlefield Live.
Turn down for what? Turn down for what?
Battlefield Live radio program, Chris Pilier. Thank you for joining me. Give a shout out to everybody out there that's watching us on Facebook Live, facebook.com/LanternsBuzz. Check it out. You can also go to our website. Make sure you go to lanterns.buzz, our website, and check out all the content there. I tell you what, our writers are really stepped up. We actually just recently joined with some more friends. Yes, common sense constitutional conservatives, Sharon and the bunch. They have come on board, and we are really looking forward to working with them. She's got a handful of great writers that are going to be sharing some content on Lanterns. I think we're up to like almost 40 different contributotors over at lanterns.buzz. Check it out, lanterns.buzz. Actually, there's a couple of articles written on what we're talking about tonight, Milo Yiannopoulos, and what's been going on with him, and some great commentary on, amongst other things, some of the things that's going on in the Trump campaign. So check it out. Make sure you also go to iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Player.fm, and SoundCloud. Do a keyword search for Lanterns Buzz or Lanterns Media Network and subscribe to our podcast. You can check us out as well on Spreaker. Spreaker.com, keyword search Lanterns Buzz, and you can check us out at the website lanterns.buzz and battlefield.buzz to get the Lanterns Media Network Battlefield Live radio program archive. So, all right, so let's dig back in. So we've got about another 15 more minutes, and I want to make sure that I cover all of this. What is conservatism? Right? And we were talking a little bit about consent earlier. And one of the things that, in understanding what consent is that is a decision we've made as a society, what is the age of adulthood? And when is it that a child turns into an adult or a young adult turns into an adult that can make good decisions for themselves? And it's interesting that this if you look at what childhood is and the way that we determine what childhood is, it's actually a fairly new theory or a new idea of childhood. If you look at back in history, which I've done a lot of research on this recently as well, but since this whole issue of consent came up, childhood, believe it or not, is something that's of the 19th and 20th century. In the late 1800s, in the early 1900s, the idea of protecting children came to the forefront of Western culture. You can see remnants of the old in a lot of the older cultures that have not had a reformation, like the Muslim culture. You'll see that older men marrying young girls, and we sit over here horrified when we see that, but their culture still looks at children as if they're not children. We understand through different things, including some of what I would call some of the pseudosciences of what happens to children when they get put into adult situations, what happens to them. And so we've done things to try to protect children. In some cases, progressives have utilized laws in order to be able to steer children into the progressive way. That's a whole nother issue. We're not going to talk about that tonight. But the point is that this whole idea of childhood is a fairly new concept. So when we create laws, we're talking about what conservatism is. Well, conservatism, we look to a civil society that's ruled by laws and not by men, right? So people that say that we should ignore the law and go do civil protests and uncivil protests and break windows and be civilly disobedient and things of that nature, well, that's kind of taking the law into your own hands. That's not conservatism. That's one of the reasons why you don't see conservatives out there, getting maced because they won't let people go walk into campus somewhere. It's because we believe in the law. We don't believe in the rule of man. That's a progressive liberal ideology or tenet of their ideology. Right? So one of the big things that I have to mention here as far as defining what conservatism is, consists of a biblical worldview. Yeah, I know. Some of you conservatives out there, there we go. We're throwing the Bible in there. Bible thumping. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm not. Don't get me wrong. I think you should read the Bible. I'm a Christian. I think you should, study up, if you will. But the reason I would look at it from a conservative's to have you study the Bible is not because I'm wanting you to be spiritually saved, which I do want you to be spiritually saved. But I want you to understand that the Western culture was built out of the Bible. Arguably, the foundation of Western culture was on the back of Moses. His story with the Ten Commandments. The Ten Commandments was a charter of property rights in some respects. If you look at, and I know you. Well, what about don't cheat on your wife or don't covet your neighbor's wife? Well, in a Western culture relationship where marriage is the bond between a man and a woman, a legal bond between a man and a woman, they own each other. Okay, it sounds funny. But what happens when you get divorced? What do you have to do? You have to go through this nightmare of tearing up each other apart, of getting each other's property, or breaking up your property into different pieces in order for you to be able to share it, right? Or give it to the other person. Why is that? Because when you get married, you form a bond. You become a single person for the most part, at least legally. So don't steal, right? Thou shalt not steal. Because you're taking somebody's property. Thou shalt not murder. Well, that is not stealing someone's life. It's their property is their life, right? I know it's thou shalt not kill. A lot of you people think that. It's not. It's thou shalt not murder. Because sometimes you have to kill. But you should never have to murder. Honor thy father and thy mother. It's a little more complicated, but a mother and father build the foundation of Western culture in the family with a child, and that child is the property of the parents until the child is of an age of what? Of consent. Or they reach adulthood, which is usually in the Catholic Church, it's confirmation. Within the Jewish teachings and doctrine, it's bat mitzvah, bar mitzvah, right? All of these things, there's huge roots that go all throughout our culture that you can trace back that are really, really important to mention and embrace. So the biblical worldview is extremely important. Individualism, not collectivism, is in the Bible. The first mentioning of socialism that we know of is at the Tower of Babel, where we were ground down as stones into bricks, and we were collectivized to create heaven on earth, utopia. In fact, so much so that someone called Sir Thomas More wrote a book about utopia. Plato even wrote about it in the Republic. Thomas Hobbes wrote The Leviathan, and the latest iteration of socialism that started with the Tower of Babel was Karl Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto. So those are all rejections of Western culture. Yeah, I know Plato. We think about Plato. Well, the Republic was a statist society. That's where statism came from. Free markets is the epitome of evolution. It's another part of conservatism. If you want to evolve as a culture, free up your markets. Innovation will reign. People will be looking for ways to innovate in order to be able to prosper. And they find a lot of evolutionary aspects to our humanity is done through the market system. Was computers and iPhones and all that stuff, was that created by government? No. It was created by the free market. That's how we've evolved. How about this one? Absolute truth, not relative truth. You ever hear people say that well, that's just relative. Like right and wrong is relative. There's no real right and wrong. You ever heard that? That's not Western culture, because Western culture sets out to define what's right and wrong, what's good and evil. Those that are opposed to Western culture are out to blur the lines between right and wrong. One of the hardest discussions that we can have as conservatives of whether or not homosexuality is right or wrong. It's a very tough discussion. It's the same discussion that we would have as if whether or not stealing is right or wrong. Well, it's not natural for us to steal somebody else's property. It's not natural to have sex with someone of the same sex. Whether or not you want to participate in that, I believe that's your damn business. If you don't believe in God and you don't think God's going to punish you for that, that's your business. I may be completely wrong. I'm going to go on the side of, well, but there's a possibility that he's there. I don't want to live in to eternity in hell. So these are very tough topics to discuss, because I know people that I care and love dearly that are homosexual and that have issues. I'm a sinner, so there's things that I do that are just as bad as if I was to participate in that type of behavior. We're all sinners, right? We're all imperfect. So in digging a little bit more here, we just got a few more minutes of the show. One of the problems that I'm seeing right now with this whole Milo thing is that the never Trumpers and the always Trumpers are at each other's throats, and they're constantly yelling and screaming at each other. And what's happened is all of a sudden we've become never Trumpers and always Trumpers. That's it. Oh, you just don't like Trump. That's why you don't like Milo. Oh, you like Trump. That's why you like Milo. And you're defending pedophilia because you like Donald Trump. Instead of actually digging into the conversation that Milo is having with the people around him and picking it apart and truly finding the some clarity in the nuance and having a truly thoughtful discussion about the ideas rather than the people. Because Milo's a sinner like me. We can sit here and we can throw stones all day at Milo. Milo has a lot of searching to do, a lot of soul searching. I've watched some of his videos where he's been apologetic, and I appreciate that. But I would look at yourself in the mirror as I do, and I realize that when I think and want to judge, and there is a need for judgment, but when I look and I feel like I need to judge, I look at myself and I say, well, there's a lot of things that I need to straighten up in my life. Why do I want to go bash someone else? I'll talk about the ideas. Because it's not about dehumanizing people in order to be able to try to label somebody as something. That's the problem we're having. We're dehumanizing people. We're talking at people rather than to people. Let's have discussions. Social media is not just some battlefield game, with Battleship we used to play as a kid. We can't reduce people to labels or ideologies. We'll never change hearts to change minds. We have to reach in, and it's not the peace and love and hippie thing that I'm talking about. I'm talking about really reaching out to somebody and talking to them. Understand what they're saying. Read the words that they say, just not what you want them to say. Communicate. Push back the narcissism. Push back the pride. Accept that people don't agree with... Look, if there's somebody out there that's a pedophile, let's talk. I'm not going to associate myself necessarily with them in any type of substantive way, but I want to talk to them and I want to understand it. I want to explain to them why it's wrong. And just because somebody's a pedophile doesn't mean that they go out and sleep with little boys. That means that they have sin in their heart and they have to work through it. Just like somebody that has homosexual tendencies, or somebody that has tendencies to want to sleep with somebody else's wife, or somebody that wants to steal somebody else's property. Western culture. Do we even listen to each other anymore? This is frustrating because I see it within the conservative side. People are just trying to take sides because it's about personalities over principle. It's not the way it should be. And we can't do it without respecting each other. Respect each other, regardless of whether you agree. If we don't respect each other, we'll never make any inroads to getting along. Should Trump be invited to CPAC? Why is it that we can't let Trump speak at CPAC and discuss what he's talked about? Why do we have to worry about Trump the person instead of the principles of Trump? Whether there is or not, we could discuss that. We have a great opportunity, folks, to discuss ideas, and we can't do that if we're at each other's throats. There's people out there that dislike Trump like we disliked Obama as conservatives. Those are the people that we can reach out to, and we can say, I understand where you're coming from. I know where you are. I don't agree with you necessarily, but I know where you're coming from. Let's talk about it. Let's get on the battlefield of ideas and discuss it. It's principles over personality. How many of you out there have endorsed Donald Trump and are living with it now? And people know they're holding you to the highest levels of principles because you've put all of your weight behind a person rather than the personality or rather than the principles. Folks, I'm asking you all out there to make sure that you reach out and try to change hearts, to change minds, because this is really where the fundamental change is made back to where we're supposed to be as a country. The idea of America rests in the ideas, not the personalities. So I want to thank you for joining me on the battlefield today. It's been a pleasure, and we're going to have a great time at CPAC. I hope you join us. Make sure you check us out on Lanterns Buzz. All over the place, man. We're on Facebook, SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Spreaker, Twitter, Stitcher, TuneIn, all over the place, folks. So make sure you stay tuned into us over the next couple of days. We're going to do 27 hours of radio, some great talent, some great commentary, and some great guests on the program. So stick with us on the Battlefield Live radio program and Lanterns Media Network, and we'll be back tomorrow. Check us out, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time. You'll check out my show, and we'll be live at 7 Central with the Lanterns Media Network. Later.